So, who among you has that original mind?
Everyone has got that original mind, sir.
Brilliant.
That's what I was also thinking, yeah.
Brilliant. That was the expected answer. And that is the answer. You know, whatsoever is the universe of writings upon that, whatsoever be the so-called mindsets of uh, various knowings, mindsets of attitudes, values, beliefs, mindsets uh, of expressions, mindsets that govern responses and behaviors, and mindsets that control relationships, and mindsets that generate language, whatsoever, the original mind is still there, definitely. That empty screen is always there. In most of our discussions, we have touched upon that original mind still very actively operating inside every human entity. If that original mind was not there, Ramesh, so many recordings just cannot be done. You know, all the recordings, all the inputs are written or impressed, so-called mental impressions, still because there are many, what you call, uh, unfathomable original mind is still there. Like that beautiful white screen in the film theater. All right? So many number of films, so many millions of frames of images have fallen on that. But the original screen, white screen, is still remaining there. And because it is originally white, all the possible probable variations of colors, of mindsets, can be still impressed there. But from very early times onwards, the attention of the entity is directed, cued, signaled, directed, indicated to notice that mental impressions formed in the original mind, starting with Amma, Amma, or Appa, Appa, or continuous feedback, continuous environmental feedback, environmental response happen only to uh, that moments of the developing child where its attention is sort of momentarily tacking on some mental impressions. And perhaps it is it's an impossibility that whoever be the adult, whoever be the guru, can direct the attention of the child to that emptiness, that original mindness. So it becomes an impossibility. But at a later point of time, when that attention is attention being the representative of consciousness, see, I am putting in a different perspective here. Attention, the representative of the consciousness, is all the time contained in the various mindsets. And when some of those mindsets, or a good majority of mindsets, or significant mindsets, or powerful mindsets are putting down that consciousness, somebody may think of that original mind, which would not be this much affected by mindsets. Or those few people, few individuals with that coincidentally triggered originality or whatever, they really wanted to identify the nature and properties and propensities of that original mind. And they talked about it, explaining a lot about the consequences of consciousness getting aligned with that original mind. That is, when the consciousness is aligned with that original mind by that traffic, by that energy field of attention, it is a so-called state of blissfulness or absolute freedom. Some of the seekers or seers call it as anandamayam or blissfulness and things like that. It is blissfulness because it is nothingness. There is no pictures, there is no marking, it's only the empty screen. And in that emptiness, the only possibility is something positive. And the Buddha talked about being set on that original mind. So he talked about the concept of nirvana, beyond all. But that's all just a theoretical information. But I am of the view that nirvana level of evolution is not that critically required. I am of the view also that one doesn't need to be so much stationed in that original mind. To stay in that original mind, it requires a certain external ambience, definitely. Or if one is living with other people, that person should be uh, completely keeping silent or just remain there. Why? Because even when you make a simple response to another person, a certain mindset has to be invoked. So, sitting in the Himalayas or sitting in remote corners of some forest or other places, one can maintain that continuous tuning, like the radio continuously tuned with a certain station of nothingness, continuously tuned into that. Otherwise, it is impossible and it is irrelevant. What we want is every one of you get a taste, get a glimpse, get a moment of truth of seeing that original mind, and then be there as you are, doing whatever you do, relating with whoever you are relating, and maintaining the ongoing social, cultural, behavioral position. There is nothing more to talk about original mind. That is what I defined just now. A mind without any of the mindsets. Not necessarily. A mind completely detached, completely undisturbed, unperturbed, unaffected by the mindsets, whatsoever it be. Like a placid lake, like a beautiful lake, almost unaffected by even the terrible winds. That could be a good idea. And that is possible. That is required. That is definitely possible by our systematic process of approaching it, like we are doing now. A statistical approach, getting clear about referent and referent realities and through which the nature of things uninterpreted by the ongoing language, you can gradually come into that. Because when the ongoing language itself is sort of suspended, when ongoing interpretation about whatever is seen, whatever is heard, whatever is remembered, they're all suspended, then it is more or less close to original mind. Because for most part, the mind is whatever the contents of the mind is, they all will instantly generate an internal dialogue or a stream of consciousness or some thought about doing something or meeting somebody or engaging in some activity, at least reading or listening to music or making a call to a friend or go to do some gardening or going around and all that. So when you have that immediate attention, that means when you are able to fix more or less clearly and with a clear control on eliminating or at least slowing down or reducing the volume of the internal dialogues or stream of consciousness that happen when you see a thing, when you hear about a thing, when you remember anything, then you're almost close to that original mind. Original mind is not something with all the mental impressions or mindsets deleted forever. No, not at all. It is that mind which enables the original state of the being, the original state of the child. It might smile to the face of the mother, but it is not that attached to the mother, like a 3-year-old child or a 10-year-old baby boy. It reacts to situations. It can respond to situations. It can express. It can behave with things. More or less still at least about the age of 2. But still, it is more or less original because can you say why? Still the child is original or the mind of the child is still original.
Language competencies have not set in.
Oh, of course, beautiful. Yeah, correct. That is why. When they see the mother, there is the language. Yeah, my mama. I have noticed in several homes when a little baby, when we were doing our BA, MA and all that, I, as a researcher, I have had that research tendency. I have not only that, I have been invited to many homes because the students in the hostel took it credit that I would be invited to their homes during any vacations or anything. So I have been to many homes. At that time, in most of the homes, there would be a little baby. At that time, talking about 1969, 70, 71 and all. And I have noticed when a little baby is just sitting there, apparently doing nothing, the mother gets very worried, or anybody gets worried. If the child is doing something, maybe taking a wooden toy or making some sound or moving here, there, or playing with the urine or something like that, it's okay. But if a child just like that sits somewhere, immediately somebody will go and disturb that silence, that that focused state of being. And I have subsequently noticed when boys, I mean, adolescent boys, if they sit just like that in their room, if the mother or father or the elder brother see that, they feel a little bit apprehensive and ask them, what happened? What are you thinking? Always, if you do something or the other, at least a book in front and doing nothing, then they are happy. In other words, as I indicated yesterday, when there is an apparent nothingness around, in the sense that if somebody is seen doing nothing, instantly that, do you understand? Instantly that doubt, that feeling of the other people, about detaching from everything else is coming, and they get little bit disturbed. Get the point, Ramesh?
Yes.
Husband comes home just sitting on a chair or a sofa, apparently looking nowhere. The wife might get very troubled. Or if the wife comes home and sit like that, might get troubled. All that is an indication that everything is continuously interpreted by the ongoing environment, because there is an internal dialogue in them. That internal dialogue or stream of consciousness in them cannot accept someone just like that sitting. If he is sitting in a so-called yoga posture, then it's okay. Then they have an internal dialogue to support it. Why most of the so-called gurus wear a different kind of a dress, especially of the saffron color or that range? Because that has been culturally or for centuries, that has been associated with a certain image of a person, with a certain attitude, with a certain orientation. So that person cannot be, so when that dress is worn, for the onlookers, there is only one internal dialogue. And that internal dialogue certainly contains certain mysterious elements. So they would unknowingly, kind of non-consciously feel some kind of a, LOW, lowness before such a person. So some of you also can try wearing that color of a sari or a dress after the age of 60 or 65, just like that. As a researcher, then you move, just walk on the road, then you will know the difference. Of course, I have tested it. Just a minute, there is a so-called unknown caller. Who is that? Hello? All right. So this much is all that to talk about original mind. And to me, I think that concept, the concept of original mind, the way all of you kind of sense it now, by your understanding of it, such an aspect is not that way described in any of the Upanishads or Vedanta. Of course, when Shankara talks about Advaita, there is an implication. But they do not use a clear tape. For example, Shankara's Viveka Chudamani is beautifully translated by Chinmayananda. But there is no word, there is no concept, original mind in that. That is present only in the English translation of Zen literature, Zen. Because from the very beginning, Zen masters with that mysterious Japanese uniqueness to quickly see the essence of things. They realized that whatsoever literature about enlightenment or self-realization whatsoever, they are all primarily about that original condition, original state of being of the human entity. And often that attention or consciousness is always about whatever that is called mind, that is named mind. So they realized that all research is better directed by the concept and some indications about the referent of original mind and a possible probable reality of that referent of the original mind.
Sir, can I
Yeah.
ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah, you had in the last sessions, about the parable analysis and all those times, you had spoken about the expansion of the neuronal network.
Yeah.
You reflect upon something, think about something, conceptualize. So all these things, the thought process are growing in number.
Yes, of
So
course.
the when the no mind you talk about, at one point of time you talk about expansion of neural network. The
Mm.
other side you talk about no mind, and
Yeah.
in many other situations you have told about you start learning the violin or anything, then the automatically a parallel process starts up which you name the double. So which is what we have to do? What is the double? Which aspect we have to focus on? The no mind or the expansion of consciousness or the double, or what we have to do now?
Precisely, Veena brand question. All this you have to do, okay? Especially all those concepts and ideas and perspectives which we discussed, they all you have to know precisely, Veena, to talk about the original mind. You know, that is the beauty. Like back to square one. You know? So it is like, after covering everything else, you come back to that nothingness. Like you start going for a circumnavigation of the globe. After seeing all these things, you come back to the original position. Yeah, it's a brilliant question. But there are two, three critical dimensions to what Veena said. I will come to that one after the other.
Sir,
I,
can I add a point, sir? Vinay.
no, adding a point to that. All right.
So isn't it like exercise and rest?
No,
Both are
not
necessary.
no. That you're talking about the phenomenon. I mean, you're talking about the referent of exercise uh, to relate with what Veena pointed out as developing a lot of knowing.
Yes,
And rest coming to a state where you do not do any action, right?
yes.
All right, that is a metaphor. That's a metaphor. But uh, uh, the real nature of exercise and the rest in the context of exercise are actually not quite useful in understanding this. No. In this context, I remember a myth about Alexander the Great. So he had a guru. I think his name was Diogenes or somebody like that. So before he ventured for the what called world conquering program, he went to his guru and explained all these things. So the guru asked, okay, then after conquering Indus or Kabul or Afghanistan, and finally what will you do? He said, finally I will come and take a rest. Then Diogenes asked, then why don't you take the rest now? So it is what Vinay said is something like that. Here it is not just exercise. Here it is better not to use such metaphors, because we do not need a metaphor to understand what Veena said. It is very clear. I talk about, or rather we discussed all kinds of knowings, especially new knowings, which are all registered in new neuronal networks, which will create new mindsets. That's going on one side. And on the other side, why I talk about no mind, which is devoid of all these mindsets. It's not there a conflict of interest. That's what she's asking. Yeah, in a sense, you're right, Veena. Because every time you add more and more mindsets, you go that far, you go that much cluttered in your effort to see the original mind. That is why the Zen masters never made any dialogues about, even about enlightenment. No dialogues. They would just test the disciple for his intensity of intentionality and suitability by various other means, and then give them some parables to reflect upon, like the woodcutter or the master thief or the master cook. And there is another parable of the number one and all that. And reflect upon that and come back. And in order to reduce the triggering of various mindsets, they live in a very extremely simple. What is that? There's a Japanese term for that. I think some sabi, wabi, or something like that. It means absolutely simple environment. So that other mindsets will not be triggered and re-reinforced. Okay? This kind of a mode of existence was suggested by all enlightenment traditions, whether it is Sufism or Buddhism or Christianity or Islam or Hinduism and so on. Reducing as much load of stream of consciousness as possible. And even the very act of sitting in meditation is to reduce the speed of the ongoing stream of consciousness to such an extent that it almost ceases to exist, at which point the likelihood of likelihood of the ongoing torch of attention getting its light on that state where none of the other things exist. So that question is absolutely valid, Veena. No doubt about that. But again, as Ramesh also pointed out, as it is so obvious to any sensitive, reflective intellect that the original mind is still there, like the child is still there in you. But that original mindness is not at all required for day-to-day interaction to exist even in one's familiar place. Every time in the business of life activity, one or the other or several mindsets are definitely required. So what is the advantage of having that original mind, even tuning with that original mind? That question also is possible. There, the only answer is, like Edmund Hillary said, I did this because why did I don't remember the exact question, but his answer was because Everest is there. So it is only a curiosity by some reasons of destiny or some coincidental moments of inspiration that some individuals get obsessed about somehow trying to know the so-called truth of the entity, so-called original condition of the entity. Because every moment, every day, every hour, there is variation, continuous variation from yesterday to today, from day before yesterday to yesterday, and from today to tomorrow, continuous traffic of experiences. And the consciousness is continuously defined by the statistical mean of this ongoing stream of consciousness. Then, so none of them seems to be the stable one. Then there must be an original state. There must be a non-moving state. There must be an invariant state. So that curiosity could be there for that coincidentally, as I said before, or somehow inspired intellect to know the truth. And to know the truth is more or less a very common tendency, nevertheless, because everyone, even a beggar on the road, even a drunk person sitting in the toddy shop, even he is talking about the need for truth only. My party is true. What I know is true. What is the truth about what? They're all discussing the truths only. If there is something happened, what is the truth? Who did that? Why he did that? People want to know the truth of something happened in some remote part of the world also. So to know the truth is some kind of a universal tendency. To know the truth itself is a seemingly true propensity, in kind of an inclination of every entity. The truth for the butterfly is to look at a flower with having elements of honey. The truth of the bird is to look at its place. So that search for the core, that search for the essence, the search for the sustainable is there. So like that normal distribution curve, which talks about very few people in the plus 3 sigma side and the remaining people arranged in the vast variations of mindsets, the curiosity or the search for truth of some people goes to that level of knowing the truth of one's own existence, while others are trying to know the truth of the existence of even planet Earth or galaxies or solar system. Some individuals get obsessed about knowing the truth of one's own planetary system, one's own existence. So in that case, that search can be directly done, Quite possibly, Ramana Maharshi never had this kind of sessions. He did not even go to school. Okay. So must be most probably the case of some of the classic super enlightened people. Somebody like Mahavatar Baba, who is said to be living, existing even today. What education Patanjali, supermost guy had? What was this is a common topic which we discussed. What was the so-called education of Socrates? He became the greatest philosopher, the founding philosopher of the entire West. Philosopher. All the subsequent so-called philosophers were his disciples. So that mind originated all those perceptions, That original mind is original mind. Therefore, it can originate almost any understanding in its native, organic nature. But we did not have that kind of a coincidence of coming across environmental conditions like that of Socrates or Ramana Maharshi or Patanjali or somebody like that. Therefore, our only way is no, not only way. There is the so-called other yogas, the Bhakti yoga, the Hatha yoga, what you call, I don't remember. There are so many yoga varieties. So we have chosen rather, I am fascinated about the Jnana yoga, That means yoga meaning to get into communion with whatever you want to get into communion with. So develop all kinds of understandings, all kinds of knowings. By doing some of the knowings, get into the truth of the being. That is Jnana yoga. So in that, the only way is to develop as much of jnana, as much of knowing, as much of perspective, as much of clues as possible to somehow tackle the puzzle, somehow cross the gates of all the knowings. Gates meaning after closing all the gates of all the knowings and to reach the original state. But in our condition, the way is by knowing what are the ways or strengthening our engines of intellect, by the strength of which we will be able to direct our attention to get a feel of the original mind. That is all. We could also try. I could have also tried, for example. I can also be, I realize myself that I am also a super Zen master. Just by making people meditating on the parables, I can guide them, provided the environment is quite suitable. Then we talked about the parable. That's only the beginning. At the next level of meditating on the parable, there is another thing. Next orbit of attempt to get rid of the mindsets to contact the original mind. At that time, the disciples are to meditate on what they call koans, K-O-A-N, which is nothing but a verbal puzzle. And koans are specific devices, the purpose of which is actually to defeat all the mindsets, to kind of conquer all the mindsets and come straight to the original mind. Every koan is an ultimate challenge to all the logics and all the rationales of all possible probable mindsets. I'll just tell you, there are two main koans. One can design a koan also. A koan also. That koan is listen to the sound of one hand clapping. So there is no teaching, no explanation, nothing. The disciple has to just go, just a one line instruction. Listen to the sound of one hand clapping. You have to listen to the sound. That's all. Go. If you look at it, if you look at the referent or reference of all those activities, you will see that it is first of all an impossibility. Secondly, there are at least three major sensations are involved. Listen. What is the referent of listening something? Okay, listen to the sound. Okay, so it's a single unit. Listen to the sound. Okay, ready? But of what? One hand clapping. And hand has to clap. The referent of clapping is clapping. That means two hands beating each other. So there is that visual element also involved. So by focusing, by driving hard the attention to listen to the sound of one hand clapping, the disciple has to definitely negotiate and challenge and get out of all the existing mindsets about listening and visualizing. Seeing and hearing are completely defeated there. That's enough. You don't need any training in creative analytical thinking, any exercise on understanding samasya or discussing parables or working out various exercises and so on and so forth. Yes. Then another chord is see without form. See a man without form, a form. lifting water from a well that is not dug. By none of the elements, even elements of the reference of the existing mindsets, achieve that sea. And attention is forcing. And depending upon the force of attention, and depending upon certain other organic conditions and relative humbleness or innocence or this, that kind of gentleness of the state of the disciple, he may have a perception of the so-called mind of no mind or original mind or original consciousness or whatever varied ways you name it, or satori, whatever. So to answer to Veena, so we are trying the most roundabout way. We want to conquer all the world so that finally we come to a place where there is nothing else to conquer and there is an emptiness. We are trying to defeat the sword by sword. Our sword, the sword of all knowledge is there, and by certain sword of knowledge, we are trying to defeat the sword of existing mindsets. That is Jnana Yoga. That's what we are trying in a way, Veena.
Sir, I have a point to add, and I think that expansion of consciousness, neuronal consciousness, cannot be contrary to the originality of mind.
Explain.
As with serpent consciousness only, one can be free of conditioned responses. I think knowledge and skills, whatever we gain or whatever actions, responses, behaviors that we do through as a function of brain, that are bound to be get registered in the brain or become mind sets. But coming out of that mindset for further reactions, further responses, one should have the neuronal consciousness sharpened. And I don't think that these two things are contrary. Knowledge, skills, and mindset will always be there, but conditioned responses should not be there. And that can happen only after consciousness is, neuronal consciousness is expanded as it is. You
Okay.
observe things as it is. Yeah.
Okay, Naveen. But she did not say that it is mutually opposite. She said there is a conflict. That's all.
That's point, sir. Right, sir. There is conflict. Yeah, that conflict is.
On one side, we talk about detachment, and on the other side, we talk about we train attachment. Something like that. That's what Veena is implying. But again, this statement that we can touch the original consciousness was possible because we discussed this many things. In order to establish the possibility of original mind, we needed at least 20% of the discussions that happened. Otherwise, how will we talk about original mind itself? You try talking to somebody, for example, Veena, the possibility of original mind. Then you will know that it is not that easy for the other person to even conceptualize the possibility of an original mind. Okay, even if he is conceptualized, the purpose is to give as much possible guidance in a given context so that he or she or they, if inspired, will be trying to access that original consciousness based on your guidance. And if you want to give guidance to people, of course, that level of guidance is possible only from one-on-one, only on a one-on-one situation, because every individual has a different mindset configuration. Perhaps Veena is having a pictorial, a visual understanding of so-called recordings and then the original mind. That is why that question. And to that
Yes,
question only Naveen also responded.
yes, sir.
It
Yes, sir.
is
That is
not like
always
that.
there.
It is not like
That
that.
conflict, yes, sir,
It
sir.
is almost like a thing is covered, like first Meenakshi pointed out a beautiful concept using that onion. Already it is onionized. Center point is the original, the core. Already at a given point of time, there is onionized, and every layer of that matters. Not every, but at least significant layers of that matters. They have to be resolved, or at least they have to be cut. If they are kind of a Gordian knot, they have to be cut. But then there are several things to cut. That is why. Finally, at the ultimate level, at the last gate, even the very concept of original mind becomes a block. Right now, you have an understanding about original mind, Veena. That word original mind is there. But if you go to the referent of original mind, then you will see that it is not that easy. There, perhaps like Naveen said, we have to have all kinds of tools to break up on every lock so that the referent of original mind is accessed. The concept of original mind is already clear to you. See the problem. Now you can be clear about referent and concept. The concept of original mind is very clear to you. It is more or less easy, especially at this level of your perception and experiences. But what is the referent of original mind? See, at a preliminary level, that original mind was the mind of that little infant. Just imagine, where there is no impression even of that mother's face. I mean, the way it is there with any attachment. The mind was there also. It is not that mind was formed from external agency. First, the mind was given to the child, and then everything was given. No, no, no. The movements of the hand were already there. That using the movements of hand, you take a spoon, you put your shirt, you eat the food, or you write, or you play piano or violin or tabla and calligraphy and things like that. So if the movements were not there, you just cannot do that. Similarly, the sounding was already present. If the child cannot sound, it cannot be trained to talk a language. So similarly, whatever we imagine, for example, as mind, that potentiality was already there. And that is what we are now talking about. So when we reach that original mind level, things are absolutely different, Veena. In general, a so-called creative individual, not a scientifically creative individual, like a poets, painters, to an extent script writers or music creators or theater creators, they're all little bit sort of beating around the bush of original mind, in the sense that they get that idea from nowhere. That's why, let us say, I think I have warned you also. When we use the concept of genius self himself, The referent reality of genius himself is not at all ordinary. It is very extraordinary. You are very likely to become, actually speaking, to tell you openly, you are all, if you all follow or if you all translate your knowing into the reference of what you know, more or less invariably, you will be perceived as a little bit eccentric by almost anybody. Because your responses, behaviors, actions, ways of relating, and ways of language will not be exactly in correlation with the the other people's mindsets about you. Get the point? So this is what I have been sort of warning you from the beginning. But when you become that, you will not be worried about that. That is my guarantee. That's my feeling okay about it. Others may
Yeah.
be worried about that, perhaps, and you may not be worried even when you are aware that others are worried about you. There was a complaint about my training programs even before. I mentioned in that first batch in one of the schools where I did relatively little bit, about 30%, not 30% of the program in a school where our Parvati was a student. Some 12 or 15 people were called back by their parents. I would say they are maybe very sensitive or they are very intelligent in that sense. One. Two, I just put a stop. I closed down School for Creative Perspective, my first, my dream, which I started as early as 1982 at XLR in Jamshedpur, and I sort of did something by about 1995 or so in the name School for Creative Perspective. I lived for that dream, but I stopped it when I realized that one point number one, majority of the so-called trainees were girls. That's okay. In fact, once I told openly, only girls are responding to my advertisement. I advertised in the newspaper. That is okay. But for the information of other people, like Ramesh or maybe Meenakshi or Rashidi or Anuradha or Naveen, every one of that girls, every one of those females, they married by their choice, including especially one. Two, three of them, their marriage was already fixed with somebody. One girl's marriage was to happen just after 3 months. All of them cancelled their marriages, and they all wanted to make their own choice of a partner in their life. So a few parents came attacking me. One of the parents made an announcement in all the churches in Ernakulam district that such and such a fellow is doing such and such a training program. Please do not send your children there. I did not do anything. I am actually in a way indirectly answering to the question of Veena only. In fact, Veena might already know I was strongly against the marriage of at least two of them. Though they considered me like so-called whatever guru or whatever, they did not listen to my strong objection, strongly worded objection. What I did was training them in creative analytic perception. But when they developed that creative analytical perception, the females, who were all historically subdued by various mindsets induced in them by the society or by the parents or by the culture or whatever, They suddenly felt that freeness. They felt confident. They took that so-called, let me say, that creative choice or a genius choice of doing whatever. Invariably, without exception. That is the important point. So this way, This is let us say a remote evidence of something, a possible process of contacting the original mind. I am in a way indirectly answering to the question of Veena. So when great knowledge, very great perspectives happen, it is not giving them. I was not teaching them psychology. I was not teaching them any subject. I was just making them think and reflect. That's what the core thing that happened in the training program, which they have never done, which 90% of the educated people would never do in their university classrooms or maybe even subsequently. They chose their freedom. Similarly, when we are talking about the original freedom, like Naveen also pointed out, various ideas are good. And when that ideas work gradually, it is not that they did the marriage when they were students there. No, not at all. As I told you right now in some other context, I told you that you are right now in the runway of this training program. When you take off, then the flight begins. So, the kind of contents that you have been traveling through are definitely powerful enough so that one day the film will stop and you will see the empty screen winner.
So is this somebody wants to please?
No, Veena can continue because I think
Yeah.
she has a question.
Yeah. So is this the original mind, the observer you were talking about? You
No,
said, yeah. What is that?
observer is the attention. Observer is that witness of the original mind as well as the contaminated minds. I mean the mindsets. Observer is that the central aspect. So the Trinity, there is the Trinity, the basic template of the entity or the body assemblage, okay, which generates the consciousness contents, which generates the consciousness upon which the contents are running, and then that or that mirror which reflects it back, so that the consciousness is conscious about whatever it is conscious. So that is not the one. That is a different level. That we will talk a little later. That we mentioned in between. In fact, I think the other day, even without talking about original mind, I was sort of hinting at this, that if you come across that which is witness of everything, if you are flying near the fire of that observer which you refer to, it is a little bit dangerous. I said that other day. No, this is about the so-called mind only, upon which the so-called empty slate. The first set of presentations sent by Parvati contained an empty slide, and about which she referred to as the original mind, in fact. Then she added something on that and things like that. So, original mind is different. That original mind is sensed by that observer only. The mind is different. Original mind is that whatever is right now going on. And we call it mind, but it is technically it is whatever is in your consciousness now. Whatever is in your consciousness now is the mind. For you, not the original mind. So that is why I mentioned some time back. Right now, you are listening to this, you are reflecting on that, at the so-called Freudian apparent top layer of consciousness. Beneath that, you know that you are sitting in the room. You have to have dinner, or if it is prepared, you had it, or there is no concern for dinner, or you are aware about your identity that you are this that. Then you are aware about whatever is in the environment, etc., etc. They're all there. They're all there. Half an hour back, it was some different kind of contents. Right now, this. After some time, you will have some other contents. So, in this ongoing variations of contents, what is the terrain? What is that plane upon which or in which this continuous flow is happening? And when this continuous flow is explained as, for example, in Buddha's context, as suffering, or causing depression, or defeat, or underestimation of the self, then you can try to know the so-called truth, or what is the original, non-varying condition of the mind. This way, we will come across this again and again. We have come across this even before. We will come across this with much more clear focus when we discuss about variant invariant linkage network. We have come across this at many points of time, because I know my purpose is very simple only. All these are, as Veena said, all these are Gyan. Central truth is very clear. I am Brahmasmi, finished. You are that. But in order to prove that what is the that, what is the you, and what is the you are, and all that, it will take a lot of dialoguing. That's what we are doing now. In fact, in the very first parable, the axe slipped out of its handle. Till then, the woodcutter was reflecting upon various mindsets. And when all the mindsets were cancelled, then the satori was trapped, or that moment of satori clicked. So, but till then, he was working on. And that point we discussed. There also was that moment of no mind we discussed. We did not use that word then, that's all. When the cook was preparing the tea, it was more or less the doing of an original mind. If a little baby cooks a cup of tea, how it would be? You can be definitely sure that even Shogun was in the state of original mind. He has discovered his original mind. As I told you, once you come across your original mind, please do not believe. I am sure like the mental block of unconscious mental block of the images of genius that are still blocking you. It's all possible that the concept about satori or self-realization also is similarly blocked by the consistent images of the so-called enlightened people wearing a different dress and living a different life and continuously talking about I would say, the bullshit of Anandamaya. So please do not think that. Because that thought itself will be a block, and on the day when you realize the empty screen, you will know that what I said is true. You cannot stay there forever in the normal sense. Like Patanjali or Vyasa, you just can go and stay alone in a forest, but not in any modern social environment. You have to think about the historical time point we are talking about, the Vyasas and the Patanjalis and the Ramana and all that. It was not the modern, what you call, electronic and highly educated place. First of all, we are all blocked by our educational ego, educated ego, the identity of being educated, knowledgeable, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That is in the unconscious. It is not the real Nitya sitting there. It is not the real Parvati sitting there. Or rather, it is Nitya, that person Niti is sitting there. Identity of Parvati is sitting there. Identity of Ramanishmanikam is sitting there. So when you come closer to the original mind, at least even by understanding, you will become that much far away even from your identity. You will be a person without any identity because an identity of no identity. And this does not mean that you will cease to become a mother or a housewife or an officer or a manager or a president or whatever. Okay, no. That is what I said. Do not get into that misunderstanding. Of course, there is a possibility that you may search for an opportunity to get out of all these things. Because you will know the truth of existence. But you can always live. As you are living right now. Yeah, all right. So, so by the examples of various levels, I think that Veera's question is clarified. What do you say, Veera?
I have to think or reflect, or I mean, to peripherally, I think I have understood, so called comprehended.
And do you want to think about what next? You have already comprehended. Then what thinking you require
Yeah,
next?
I don't know whether I have comprehended also. I am not sure. I don't know. I'm trying to rephrase my
No, you have
words.
comprehended the concept.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, but
So
how to
when
voice this?
you will know, or the way you want to know it, that is possible only when you get it. Right now we are discussing about the tea,
Yes, yes.
but you will know the tea only when you get that thing in your hand.
Yeah,
So you cannot sit there and think about the tea and get the feel of having the tea.
yeah.
So that insistence on getting an idea about the real referent of tea during discussions about the tea may not work, Veena.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, someone else was talking something else. Who was that?
Master, I had a question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all
Niti,
right.
you go.
Yeah, so I was wondering, would you suggest to prepare others around us?
That is your, I would say, inevitable, even duty, I suppose. But you have to be aware about the accessibility to them or their possible responsiveness to this dimension of existence. I mean, internal existence. We are not talking about internal existence only. Externally, you are working, whatever, you maintain it. Definitely. That is why, I mean, that is a choice and a possibility if it is possible. Otherwise, just don't try for that. Because that can create opposition and animosity even. Because that search for truth is with everyone. And everyone has that innate sensitivity to those who are closer to the truth. That's why, as I told in the case of children being called back from the program and things like that, they all can feel. There's a, that like a good music. Even a non-singer can feel the goodness of that music. Similarly, the people around you will inevitably feel your difference. You think that like a cat drinking milk crossing ice. I'm telling you, everyone around you already started feeling your difference. I'm very sure about that. You do not know because you cannot identify your difference unless it becomes very obvious or something like that. So you may have to do it, or you may have to carefully, strategically manage it Otherwise, there could be even problems with the so-called others around you when you try to make them aware of what you are aware of. But but I think that also can be a challenge. But as I told you, human beings belong to that various points of normal distribution curve. And in this case, I have not a single exception that there is the need of a certain destiny even to listen to this level of ideas. Even for my normal training programs in companies, I have always observed that only some kind of an eligibility was present in them. That's why they have come. They happen to be there in the program. Many times even promised candidates did not come. Because you are all aware, what are you listening? What are you meditating upon? So how many people can do this? How many can be even interested in this? Even now, I would like to tell you, if you feel there is a problem for continuing in this program, you can drop out. But of course, the fee will not be paid back. I already spent it. Or rather, I have a scheme to spend it.
That's good.
I have already started a project where I have to spend a little money. So, but I am sure you got a great level of knowledge already,
Why not, sir? Why not?
which is priceless, which is beyond whatever money. So,
Exactly.
but I want to say this particularly to Nitya, and I don't want to be very secretive about this. In fact, many meaning in my domain, many people are really convinced that this program is of negative consequences. Point number one, as I mentioned, any girl is very likely to choose her partner, unless there are other agreement with the parents or something like that. And mostly the girls, they face a lot of problems with their husbands. I know at least the case of, because of certain reason, yesterday myself and Amaya were sitting in. At least almost 9 of my so-called trainees are living in some kind of a conflict with their husbands. One got married, I think, almost maybe 1 year, that's all. And that marriage was after 1 year of sort of living together. And that husband has finally what you call given her a commandment that she should never talk about me or never say anything that is learned from me or anything like that. That he said that that moment you can consider yourself out of my life. So that's the situation that happened for a girl. So I wonder, for example, what is the problem of the so-called husbands? If the wife is so wonderful, I think they should be all the more happy about that. But as I told you, this I would say, if I use the word that creative analytic height of a person, or rather the spiritual clarity of a person, is often very challenging for the other person because that person also wanted to be there. Actually, that is why. Otherwise, why he should bother? If I don't care about money, if Naveen gets a lottery, I am not bothered. So the other person gets into problem because in this case, which I said, 1 year of marriage, that guy is a so-called B.Tech plus MBA working as a senior manager in a company, and he pretends to be very knowledgeable. Visited some 1 or 2 countries, and as I told you before, I mostly tell the trainees that by the time they go, I tell them that you are now invincible. Nobody can be above you. Not in role perception and all that, but in clarity of perception. Because referent reality perception itself is enough, you know.
Then there is a like many husbands want to control.
Yeah,
So
that is another
that
thing.
control will be lost.
Control will be
Their
lost.
power to control will be diminished.
That's what I told you. 12 or 15 students were recalled from the program.
Yeah.
Nitya knows the other guy, Jagan. Jagan's
Yes, sir.
father, being an
Yeah.
influential person, he made all the churches in the district to announce on Sunday morning that such and such a person is doing a training program in such and such an institution. Do not send your children. It was announced in 3 days.
Yeah.
Why? Because his son, I mean, he is basically a Christian, his son got married to a Hindu girl. That he is not objectionable because he was expecting something like 75 lakh dowry. That was the
Oh.
standard dowry at that time. That was the
Uh-huh.
standard dowry which was almost promised by some other family. That was the main reason. And this particular father asked him to pay that money also
Mm.
to the boy. He said, "You give me that money." I mean, that's all, I mean, whatever it is. Also, that is quite possible. So, this I want to tell you. That's why I stopped that institution because most of the girls who got, I was surprised. For example, why only the girls become interested in this training program? Because they are liberated now. They are free. They can understand. When I advertised maximum number of so-called telephone calls, I suppose not even a single boy called. So there was a lot of perceptions out of that experience. So coming back, these are all answers to the question of Veena. When greater knowledge happens, there is a freedom, and there is a general freedom by which people take decisions. And we are talking about greater knowledge in the direction of coming across or discovering or identifying or differentiating or discerning the signals of that original mind. So it will happen, and this is not necessarily a contradiction, Veena. This is like you need a sword to defeat a sword. That's all. Yes,
Yeah.
Meenakshi. Yeah,
Yeah,
Meenakshi.
Master, yes, I had a question first, but that question seems irrelevant now.
But I
But
don't
I
think
would
I
be,
don't know. No question will be irrelevant. You can nevertheless ask it. There could be a reason why
okay.
you wanted to ask that question. What is that reason? So we will understand that reason. So ask the question.
Okay, so the question was, you mentioned the girls who trained under you all made their own decisions later when they were freed from the mindsets they had when they joined your program.
Yeah.
And you also said that you opposed to their new decisions. If that came from a changed mindset or from their original mind, why did you oppose it?
Oh, Meenakshi, for stupid reasons only.
Okay.
Stupid reasons like the girls' parents came and yelled at me and all those things, and they made an allegation that I was the one who I was giving that direction to them. See, just imagine. They said I was rather inspiring those girls to do like that. That one was not at all a topic in our discussion. Unfortunately, what? Two of them. the boy and girl, they were trainees there. So they thought that they got that facility because of my training center or kind of ideas we discussed. Like that I am talking about Jagan and Indu. Then
Okay.
again the same thing repeated in case of Uma Maheshwari and Prasad. Uma Maheshwari's parents were so much fascinated about me. They have come all the way from Trichy to Coimbatore to meet me. So much fascination was there. But the same people got absolutely angry with me because Uma married Prasad. So Prasad also was my trainee.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So Uma's mother said, I wanted to get a bomb to kill that man. That's what she told Uma. Which she told me. But I never did anything or said anything. In fact, Uma and Prashant were close even before coming to me.
Yes.
They were classmates.
Yeah, I know.
So, but perhaps she would not have got the decision, strength to marry him, because that much of opposition was there. Anyway, yeah. So all these are in a way answering in a very beautiful way, an indirect way, giving you non-conscious happiness that all this will finally end up taking your flight out of the tarmac to the freedom of genius himself. Sorry, from the runway. That has to happen. If this has happened to so many people, I have never been. I know what I'm talking, and I know the possible, probable directions of your attention. So long as you listen to what I'm talking.
Yeah. Master, can I make a point to
Yeah.
Neeti
Yeah.
regarding her question?
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so this is a candid.
Sorry. Once again.
So this is a this is a candid statement about my own experiences having been master's mentee for many years. When I initially started training under master, I had a lot of opposition at home from my husband and my parents, who never liked my going and staying with master, which I did on all my vacations. So in spite of the fact that I stayed for a whole month with my parents and I spent maybe 3 days at Alandure, it was never liked. But despite their not liking, I would go. And I clearly remember the incident when I decided to buy my Jeep. My husband was extremely upset about it. He was very angry and he openly told me that I cannot buy a Jeep. And he asked me, why can't I be like other women?
It's 21 hours.
And the other women were, some of my colleagues who were at work. So I told him that I'm buying out of my inspiration. And then the next line of argument was that you don't even know how to drive. So it was in that context that I bought my Jeep and learned to drive on it. Now, the continuation of the story is this. In the years after, particularly in the last year, his attitude as well as my parents' attitude towards me has completely changed. I think they have observed the way I behave and are now extremely accepting, respectful, and happy about me. So you may have some initial difficulties, but then people realize the changes in you. and this initial turbulence goes away after a while. So my message to Nitya is, even if there are some rough patches, they too would go away. And more importantly, after a while, that does not matter to you. That too has happened to me. So both ways, the outcomes are good.
Okay.
And I have experienced it. I am experiencing it. The outcomes
Nice.
are only good. They're very good and they're exceptionally good because I see the responses of people to me now and I see the difference. So have
Thank you,
no
Manshi.
worry. Have no
Okay.
worry.
In a way, Nitya is partly lucky because of the timing.
Yeah.
And on the other side, partly unlucky also because of the timing. In the sense that her husband, because this is now an open discussion, because it's about the mind and mind. So I'm sure already he is a wonderful guy. Otherwise, it is not easy to escape from the perception that what is there? She is sitting for about 3 hours late night, We can be genuinely concerned about at least her health. That kind of thoughts are possible. Because right now, already it is 1:30, right? Something like that.
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
So I would say already he is a wonderful guy, no doubt about that. To tolerate that, if it is for 1 or 2, 3 days, it is okay. So that natural, because she is all the time there. She is his wife, his companion, and she is sitting there like that. He cannot know what is going on. So just like that, sitting at the mid of night for so many days. So what is going on? Why? Etc. Etc. Normal health concern itself can be an obsession. So it is wonderful that he has already managed that obsession. That is a great point. Otherwise, he could ask every day, when did you sleep yesterday? Oh, 3:30. What are you doing? He can ask a normal question. You have to go for work. Tomorrow morning, you have to get up, prepare the breakfast, and go to the office and come back. And then again, what is this? If it is on a Saturday, it is okay. Now it is on Wednesdays also. What is going on? So, uh,
Yeah, true, sir.
uh,
Very true.
but if she has accepted at least that itself is a great thing. But I don't know to what extent he must have really accepted it. And there is Anu also. Um, I don't know what is the situation there. Anu's situation. Then Parvati is there. But Parvati's husband knows me even before his marrying her. Or rather, I think that Parvati has given him a very strategically acceptable picture about me. And even Parvati's husband, even before their marriage, wanted to uh, really attend my training program as a trainee and all that. So I don't know what is the situation there. But to talk very openly, I don't know whether Parvati would like it. Her mother, who is in a way much more known to me very recently for the last 5, 6 years, talking at least once in a month for an average half an hour. For Parvati's currently joining this program, I think her mother really objected to that. Telling this reason that most of the trainees who attended my program, their life was gone astray or something like that, gone out of control or They're all suffering and all that. But I don't know how Parvati managed it.
Sir, one of the things that I noticed, like I heard from Ashok, is he was telling that because maybe, like while talking itself, he said maybe because I have that self-interest that I'm the husband, or like, because you're my wife, I may be objecting or I may have different thoughts. If it is somebody else, then his thoughts will be different. So it is that husband mind that is trying to be in control or something like that, which he is also aware.
But which he said, right?
Yes.
That is a brilliant statement. No doubt about that, Nitya. No doubt about that.
Mm.
That's marvelous. No doubt about that. And they were those kind of dialogues could have been a beautiful opportunity for you to appreciate him and give him the proper feedback. I'm sure you must have done that. And I don't know the situations of the men here. Ramesh, Tintin, then
Naveen.
Naveen, then
Yes,
Vinay.
sir. Same situation is there also. What is the class is all about? The queries goes on.
Naveen,
And
ignore, neglect, ignore button.
Trying to give some awareness.
and Vinay is just married, I suppose, barely 1 year.
Then he might be facing more problem than us.
No, no. Nothing like that because I had already given an introduction and she personally met Sir also. So, as Sir pointed out before some time, the strategic introduction was really good.
Why
Not,
not? Why not?
though I didn't do it strategically.
That's a beautiful statement. Yeah. This is all expectable. When you travel at a high speed, naturally, so you have to always uh, sympathetically understand them and very strategically manage them. Veena might know this. I used to tell the trainees almost once in 2 days that you have to be very strategic in your dialogues, in your expressions, in your behaviors, in your responses when situations like this come. But just condition and or similar conditions, even strategies would be a little bit difficult. Because what strategy is possible? Because the wife is sitting there and for so long, perhaps there are so much of arguments and so much of dialogues possible.
No, actually, he's also very busy, so
And
it is.
he's also into this kind of things, yoga. He has taken
Yeah.
a 3,000 kilometer walk and all that. So extraordinary people can understand this.
Yeah.
Or having done something extraordinary can see, only extraordinary can understand the extraordinary. That's the problem.
Nityaji is like the master cook, secretly practicing.
Very good. Very
And
good.
the night, yes.
So even that on every Wednesday, in fact, every time increasingly, I am also aware of this thing that and there is no way to reduce the classes or reduce the session time.
No, I'm thinking it may be advantageous also because there is no other sound or any other distractions. So as long as I can manage my own need for sleep or like how I manage the next day, then everything is fine because others are not affected as such.
What is the situation with you, Tintin? Today we are talking about original mind. What are your original experiences at home? Is that all right?
You are muted.
And Tintin?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Saturdays, Sundays usually are a time of, let's say, everybody together and maybe some get-togethers, merriment, etc. So I've successfully convinced all that to be postponed because even Fridays till 11 I'm working. So I'm only available on Sundays is known. Then it's a little different for the family. The compromise is sometimes I have to move from room to room based on the entertainment and other activities. That's also a different change of setting for me. Wednesdays are the only problem because I drive certain meetings during that time. That's a problem.
Yeah, we will try to reduce the time duration, and we will try to reduce the number of meetings also. What do you suggest? I can talk all these things in a limited time also. But my purpose is to prepare your mind with all possible, probable range of scaffolding so that when you want to talk to someone, you will get ideas to talk. Because I am giving you what I have gathered over my turbulent life. Like I am the researcher, trial and error. So many errors. By so many errors, I have found this discourse.
I have just one question.
So I am giving you the fruits of my trials. So all of them are applicable. It may come to your rescue at the required points of time.
I am actually
not only that. This is training. So training will require all training by language. So I know what all beating around the bushes are to be done. So it is around the bush. I am trying to give a network of various ideas so that the central point will emerge in you. So we take this time. Yes, Tintin?
Yeah, I was saying, in fact, I am greedy for more and would not have minded even having maybe 2 or 3 classes in a week. If Nityaji wasn't in Australia, I would have maybe suggested, can we do it later in the evening only on Wednesday? But since that is not possible, it will be like she doing a double night shift. Only for Wednesday is it possible? Maybe we can do it on a mornings, even however early, depending on everybody's convenience, if only.
Mornings means what time, Tintin? What time you?
That is Nitya going to sleep as early as possible and getting up at 4 o'clock and then doing the program, right? In Nitya's case. And
Whichever is convenient for Nitya.
whereas we begin the program by 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I have also thought about this. If it is agreeable for you, it is wonderful. Because I discussed this sometimes with Amay also. Then I used to say, most of the time in the past, we have a dinner and then see a second show in the TV. It ends up at 1:30, 2 o'clock. So there is no problem there. Not only that, it is much more advantageous. Because by 9 o'clock and all that, especially, the neuronal system process is very, very conducive for transmitting or discussing this level of ideas. Because the brain comes dominant into the right hemisphere. So it is a pakka time. That's why even in my normal company training programs, I would extend my training program to late night, beyond 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, etc. And those programs were the most powerful, most effective, because they also get into that right brain mode, So they also enjoy it, and that is the right time to discuss this kind of ideas. So we can think like that. We will start the program at 9. That means 9 o'clock means what time for you, Nitya?
1 a.m. in the morning.
1 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh, that is also not okay.
It's a little bit later, maybe 3 or 4.
when so if Nitya is to come at 3:30, that is, I think, the minimum most time, right?
Yeah. 3:30 is fine.
3:30 meaning we have to start the program at 11 o'clock.
Yes. 11:30.
I'm ready. I'm
I'm
ready.
fine.
Okay. That will be a unique experience, sir. Yeah, why not, sir?
And then we may not need this much of time also. Then I know that instead of 10 sentences I make, I will need to make only 2 sentences.
Sir, is it okay that if we stick to the same time?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it only, I was thinking only from a Wednesday's perspective, if that is convenient for all. Because otherwise,
Or there was, sometime back we had a program on Sundays.
Yes.
What about Sunday 2 o'clock, something like that? Sunday 1 o'clock, is it okay? Then again
fine.
it is a problem maybe for Nitya. Then she will be 4:30, 5 o'clock.
No, that's okay, sir. Sunday evening is fine. Like Sunday afternoon there, and it will be Sunday evening here. That will be fine for me, no problem.
Then what about Anuradha?
Yes, Sunday afternoon is okay.
What about Vinay, Naveen, Ramesh,
Okay, sir. No problem.
Meenakshi?
On Sunday afternoon can it be slightly later, like after at 2 p.m. or later? Because till 1 I have another class on Sundays.
Okay, Sunday 2 p.m. Then it will be for 6:30 p.m. for Nitya.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll manage. We can try that. That's fine.
So we'll restrict it to, for example, every Sunday 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So is it every Sunday 2 o'clock?
Oh, like every Saturday, what you call 7:30. Every Sunday 2 o'clock.
Okay.
We can discuss because clarity is required basically in referent concept, reference, referent reality perception, referent reality interpretation, and reconceptualization. That is the fundamental. Once that fundamental is clear to you, then we can cut short the number of interactions. I will just give you assignments, and you do it, and you don't have to present it. Like in the Zen monasteries, you do the work, and when you and write down all the questions, and one day we will fix where all questions will be discussed. The Zen mode of interaction. So right now, quickly I thought of a referent, a referent reality-based question. What is Sunday?
Leisure day.
What?
Leisure.
What is the? No, proceed. What is the concept of Sunday? All right, you say it is a leisure day. All right, okay, no problem. Leisure day. The concept of Sunday. We are again going to word or term or set of terms. Then concepts of that word.
It's a
Then
big
the referent of that word. Referent reality of that referent. interpretation of that referent or referent reality, and then conceptualizing it again. Then there will be an automatic reconceptualization. Then a T is no more a T. Then T is representing the entire world of T, from its cultivation to enlightenment. That's a reconceptualization of the concept of T. Similarly, what is Sunday? What is the concept of Sunday? Begin with what is the meaning of Sunday? I don't know whether there is a meaning. Somebody can you see what is the meaning of Sunday? Tintin? Who is good at quick reference? What is Sunday?
The definition says the day of the week before Monday and following Saturday, observed by Christians as a day of rest and religious worship, forming part of the weekend.
So Sunday is just a name given.
Yes. How did Sunday get its name? It came from the Old English Sunna, I don't know, phonetics, derived from a Germanic interpretation of Latin Dies Solis, Sun's Day. It's a Germanic and Norse mythology personifying sun as a goddess named Sanna or Soy. So it's a day to honor that deity, which got adopted by the Christian religion in, I don't know what the concept is called, localization.
All right. What is the referent of Sunday?
A day of holy day.
Referent of Sunday.
It's the name of a day.
Who is telling that? Anuradha. It is the name of a day. Agreed. But what is the reference?
It's a day with a different routine.
All right, go on.
Sir,
Yeah.
sometime back I just wrote on Saturday, Sunday, a small.
What is it? Please read out.
Yeah.
Yes, great.
It's basically it's realign. So it's realign. So start your week on Sunday, then ending it on Sunday.
Okay, that's a good conceptualization about Sunday. But what is the referent of Sunday? What did Anuradha say? Anuradha said something?
It's a day with a different routine.
All right. Are you trying to really locate the referent of Sunday? All right. What is the referent of day? First of all, day. Begin there.
24 hours.
Set of 24 hours.
That is again the concept. What is the referent of day?
Time when you are active.
It is
Time when you are active.
days when there is sunlight.
Who is telling when we are active? That way, then you are talking about the you. You have to talk about the day.
Days
Like what?
when there is
When there is light.
When there is
sunlight.
The period marked by the rising and setting sun.
Hmm.
Yeah. much more closer definition of a day. Any other definition possible? Any other description of the referent of day possible? That's why I always give you a simple example of the pen or a cup. The word pen means a writing instrument. The concept of pen can be dependent on you, something which you use to write, something which you fill in ink or buy from the shop, something which you always carry with you, something which is a discovery of human being. All kinds of concepts about a pen are possible. Pen belongs to various categories, various brands, various costs and all that. But the referent is very clear. That material, that physical design, that cylindrical long object with all the further names of cap, of neck, nib, feeder, tank, etc., etc. That is the referent. That is the thing which is named pen in this context. Of course, the word pen also refers to that containment where sheep or cattle are kept, also is called a pen. Pen also means feather. So let us choose writing instrument. For a writing instrument, the pen, what is the reference is that thing. Maybe right now on your table. It may not be a fountain pen, it may be a whatever pen. So that is the referent of the word pen. Then the reality of the referent. When you talk about the reality of the referent, you have to, there are millions of pens, you have to start talking about the reality of a referent pen. Then you have to start somewhere, then you take a pen. You cannot start at the same time talking about the reality of the referent pen in its full totality in the world. Not even in your house. You have to start talking about the reality of the referent of pen, that material. So you have to take one. You have to begin somewhere. So you take a pen. And that pen has a reality. That it was purchased from Bangalore. And you purchased it on a certain day when you went with a friend to a shop. You never wanted to purchase that. But when the friend was, I mean, for example, the reality of your pen. I'm just concocting a story. Then it is seldom used, or you use it only to sign checks or put a signature. Nowadays, pens are not used. So that pen has a certain reality. It may be kept very neatly in its pen holder, or maybe just like that lying on the table. So that is the reality of the pen which you are choosing now. So if after listing the reality of your pen, then you take the pen of your wife. Then you may go and taking the pen of Mahatma Gandhi or Elizabeth Taylor and go on. You can go on taking all the pens in the world and talk about the reality. Then you may need some 1,000 years. So you take the reality of one, for example. Then you can interpret those realities. Like, for example, your pen is a little bit dirty or bent and all that. So you can give an interpretation that this pen's
It's
owner is not careful about
21:30.
that. He doesn't understand the importance of pen, or this pen's destiny is like that. This pen has been used in writing poetry, and so-called interpretations, if possible, they can be made. Anyway, after all these things, you have a reconceptualization. That means a revised mental impression about pen, which I am sure already happened to you even before. Now your way of seeing a pen has already changed, I am sure. So that's a different issue. Now coming back, what is the referent of a day? No, you don't have to answer it. So we are getting into a little more complexity. So what is the reality of the referent of Sunday? Then you have to take a certain Sunday. Then only it is possible. Then what Aniratha said, what you call a Sunday, the routines are different. Like Naveen said, Sunday is a leisure for him. Even now, for example, having discussed, it is an answer to Veena also. having discussed these 4 or 5 lines, or having sounding these 4 or 5 lines about Sunday right now today, I am sure your attitude or your perception, your mental impression about Sunday has already changed.
Yes.
That you will know when you talk about Sunday next day, or when you remember Sunday next day. So our purpose of discussing about the mind also is like that. I want every one of you to create a theory. So what is the theorization exercise? That is your attention trying to capture as much as possible the possible probable nature of that called mind. So at that context, I said mind is a reality without a proper reference. Okay. Biological investigations say that the cerebral cortex, the central nervous system, is the seat of mind. Someone also add the heart chakra into mind. Then there is a discussion about what you call the Manipuric chakra. I mean, the navel center is again the root driver of the mind. They are all trying to explain the referent of mind. They are trying to locate a referent for mind. But that location we may not be easily possible. I mean, it may not be that easy to identify that referent of the mind. We can say brain, or we can say heart, we can say the abdomen region. But for us, mind is a reality. We feel emotions. We feel likes and dislikes. We feel choices. We feel certain attitudes. We feel varied range of emotions. So mind is in that sense a reality without a reference. You can do actual focusing your attention on the central part of your body, abdominal region. Behind that is a very serious ganglion junction, technically called the sciatic plexus. In fact, the root of the emotive forces are from there only, not even from the heart. It is generated there, then it spreads into the heart, and then it is feedback loop perception going time 1, time 2, time 3, time 4. It goes on covering different orbits. So why you should be reflecting upon the reality of the referent of mind? Is that are they just emotions? Yeah, emotions are there. Sometimes there's a feeling of depression, sometimes there's a feeling of happiness. Then there are so-called thoughts which people say that also is a part of mind. Okay, whatever that is okay. Whatever you are aware of us in your inside. That you have to reflect. Because every expression of another person, every expression, every response, every behavior, every action, every way of relationship, and every dialogue is actually generated by the mindset or whatever is responding from that consciousness contents. So the contents of consciousness is that the referent of reality of the referent of mind. Yeah, yes, that cannot be denied. So how that is to you? If when you look at the variations of that mind, that contents, first of all, we are not theoretically proceeding, but coming to the practical requirement, you have to be clarifying, you have to reconceptualize your approach, your attention to your own mind, primarily with the number one proposition that after all it is an ever ongoing variation. Half an hour back I was worried about whether the servant was coming today or not. Right now I am worried about what dinner I will cook. After 10 minutes, I will be worried about, oh, I have to do some homework. So it is going on varying of different time intervals. A certain